Hey, welcome to the United We Scan podcast. Just a quick disclaimer here that any of the views and opinions expressed by the individuals are not that of the USPS or the NRLCA. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and if you are in need of any assistance, please contact your designated union representative. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Where are we at? Episode 147. Tonight we're going to cover acts of God and whatever else we can tie in with that, as we all know this crazy weather that is hitting many, many, many areas of the country. On that note, Josh, how's been your last couple of weeks?
They've been. Last weekend, we had a half inch of ice come down over the weekend. This weekend, we had about a foot of snow. So, luckily, I'm in the Carolinas, so the sun comes out and it melts most of everything pretty quickly. So, we don't have snow on top of ice like you would get in your area. But other than that, it's been a week or two. How was your past couple weeks?
My last couple weeks have been okay. We haven't had that bad of weather here, thankfully. It's been cold, and I know it's been cold and like scary, scary cold and scary, scary weather in a lot of the country. But thankfully, it's not been too bad here. I was supposed to go to SAC, the South Atlantic Conference, but it got canceled, and I had actually canceled. The airport is about an hour away from here, and I ended up canceling my plane tickets because it was which was like right before I think it got canceled. So that was a little bit of a bummer, but it's better that we're all safe. And that was a little crazy with all of that, but I had a shadow. I had a new sub shadow with me the other day, which is good, but also it's you never know what you're going to expect with that. But other than that, I mean, it's been just working and chilling. So, how have you been, Kristen?
It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks for me. I'll save the sob story till the end, so I don't want to get off on a too much of a somber, sad note. But I did my 4 days of first 4 days of the next step in my next hat I'm wearing, and that went actually really good, and it was fun. So I think once I get through the next couple steps of training, I'm really going to enjoy what I'll be doing. And well, then I was off again this past week, and yeah, it's been it's been a rough week. I'm looking forward to going back to work tomorrow, but I'm not. I mean, it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on my route, so I'm looking forward to getting in there and see what's going on. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm quite ready to go back to work yet, but I have to. At least hopefully for a few days, three minimum. Depends. I'll look at the schedule when I get it in the morning, see if there's coverage for the end of the week. But other than that, let's go on. Of course, we've been having these massive acts of God going on across the country. I can relate with the bitter coldness and the wind chills and the negative temperatures and even colder negative wind chills and snow and icy conditions, and it has just been making it not the greatest. And I know Josh got dumped with snow in an area that normally doesn't see much of anything, maybe a dusting once in a while. So,
Yep.
yeah.
As someone put it, we're used to getting the Timu winner, not a real winner.
Yeah.
Earlier. But before we get into that, speaking of SAC, if anyone of our listeners was interested, they did reschedule it for, I believe it's February 28th through March 2nd.
That's good to know. Still won't be able to make it.
It's still going to be at the Cherokee. Well, I'm just throwing any information out there for.
Yeah, definitely.
I won't be able to make it because I already had plans that weekend.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything officially released on the rescheduled dates yet, but I'm sure that's coming.
Yeah, and they'll put it out on the NRLCA website
Absolutely.
for the
Yep.
official.
Yep. All right. Acts
So,
of
um,
God. You got that info there for us, Meow?
yes, I do. So I just wanted to start out by saying I know we wanted to do this a couple weeks ago, like just because of the weather and everything too, but um, obviously, like I mean, we've all had a lot of things going on, but it's very prevalent, and I it doesn't necessarily acts of God don't necessarily need to be a snowstorm. It could be flooding. It could be hurricanes. It could be there's different
Wildfires.
scenarios, like wildfires. There could be different things that fall under this umbrella, and so some of the language that I'm going to read is a little bit vague, but we can go into a little bit more of it after. So in Elm section 519.21, Acts of God, general acts of God involve community disasters such as fire, flood, or storms. The disaster situation must be general rather than personal in scope and impact. It must prevent groups of employees from working or reporting to work. Elm section 519.2.212, authorizing administrative leave for acts of God. The following provisions concern administrative leave for acts of God. A. Postmasters and other installation heads have authority to approve administrative leave for up to 1 day. B. District managers and Postal Career Executive Service (PCES) plant managers may authorize administrative leave beyond 1 day, but not to exceed a total of 3 days for their installation and those reporting to it. C. District managers and senior or lead plant managers may approve administrative leave for periods up to and in excess of 3 days for their installation and those reporting to it. Elm section 519.213, determining the cause of absence. Postmasters and other appropriate postal officials determine whether absences from duty allegedly due to acts of God were in fact due to such cause, or whether the employee or employees in question could, with reasonable diligence, have reported for duty. Elm section 519.214, early dismissal due to acts of God. When employees are dismissed from duty before the normal completion of their duty due to an act of God, the following applies. A. Full-time employees are entitled to credit for hours worked plus enough administrative leave to complete their tour of duty. This combination of work and leave is not to exceed 8 hours in any 1 day. B. Part-time regular employees are entitled to credit for hours worked plus enough administrative leave to complete their scheduled hours of duty. This combination of work and leave is not to exceed 8 hours in any 1 day. And C. Part-time flexible employees are entitled to credit for hours worked plus enough administrative leave to complete their scheduled tour. The combination of straight time worked and administrative leave must not exceed 8 hours in a service day. If there is a question as to the scheduled work hours, the part-time flexible employee is entitled to the greater of the following: the number of hours the part-time flexible worked on the service day in the previous service week, 2, the number of hours the part-time flexible is scheduled to work, and 3, the guaranteed hours as provided in the applicable national agreement. Employees prevented from reporting. Employees scheduled to report are prevented from reporting. Employees scheduled to report are prevented from reporting, or who have reporting are prevented from working by an act of God may be excused as follows. A. Full-time and part-time regular employees receive administrative to cover their scheduled tour of duty do not exceed 8 hours. B. Part-time flexible employees receive administrative leave subject to the 8-hour limitation for their scheduled work hours as provided in Elm section 519.214C. Employees on annual leave and sick leave, or LWOP. Employees on annual leave, sick leave, or LWOP remain in such status. They are not entitled to administrative leave. And then Elm section 519.217, substitute roll carriers and roll carrier associates. Substitute rule carriers and RCAs in a leave earning status are treated the same as rule carriers. If they are scheduled for duty and are unable to report to the postal installation, administrative leave is granted for the full day that the employees are scheduled to serve their routes. No equipment maintenance allowance is paid. And B, if employees are scheduled for duty and report to the postal installation but are unable to serve all or part of their routes, though through no fault of their own, they may be granted administrative leave for the remainder of the normal tour of duty for that day. Payment for equipment maintenance allowance is made, if appropriate, because employees are considered to be in a duty status. Now, there's also ELM language about civil disorders, and I might read that later on, because that might actually, I'm like, dang, I haven't read that in a while. Let's go into other parts of the ELM. But anyways, and the next part I'm going to read is Article 30.1.h of the National Agreement for Rule Carriers, the contract, and it is acts of God. When acts of God prevent an employee from performing the employee's duty, the employer may authorize administrative leave. Equipment maintenance allowance will be paid for each service day a rule carrier reports to the post office and is scheduled to perform delivery. If the carrier fails to serve all or any portion of the route due to lack of proper endeavor or any failure for which the carrier is responsible, appropriate deductions from salary and equipment maintenance allowance will be made based on miles omitted. So, lots of reading there. The gist of it, basically, is that you're going to see a lot of people online going, hey, we have a snowstorm, what's going on? Why isn't the post office shut down? And, I know we have the motto, rain, snow, sleet, shine, tornado, wildfires, or whatever. Us as postal employees have an obligation to attempt to make it to work. But in an act of God situation, there's different circumstances that can result. So let's say the governor shut down all of the state, or shut down the highways, the main artery roads, that could be considered with it. And, or, if there's feet of snow and none of the roads are passable, and you go outside and you can't even see your car, and, it depends upon your area and the scenario that you're in. If it's, for instance, we had flooding here, and it turned into an act of God situation here because the rivers were flooding, and the canals surrounding the post office were also flooding. So you couldn't, if you went on one side of it, you couldn't access and get to the other side. And so that ended up becoming an act of God scenario. But the main thing is you make an attempt. If it's not safe, you're the one who makes that determination of your own safety. But if it's truly an act of God, you can, you'll see the weather reports. If a governor declares state of emergency, if your state's public transportation or the the Department of Motor Vehicles and Road Maintenance has determined, that there's no safe, passable ways to get our job done, to get the mail delivered, for you to safely get to work. Typically, those are scenarios that would become act of God. Do you guys want to chime in at all? Because they're all quiet.
Josh getting 11 inches of snow in Charlotte, North Carolina is completely different than me getting 11 inches of snow in northeastern Michigan.
Yes.
Number one, we have the road crews.
It just depends upon.
We have the plow services for it. Charlotte, North Carolina does not.
No.
We have them,
but not in the
and they do
abundance
the
like we do.
main road. They don't do secondary, right? Like I know,
Now,
like back home where my parents are in Pennsylvania, they get road. Down here, they just get the main roads. So like the back road, like you said, the back roads, the neighborhoods, it's up to the individual neighborhood to take care of that. And like I know in mine, they don't.
And
But
whereas, with mine, yes,
and it's supposed to be into single digits. The temperature is supposed to dip to low teens or single digits overnight tonight and early tomorrow morning. So in the morning on the way to work, I'm looking at black ice versus, even if they did plow and salt, once I get off my street onto the main road.
and salt doesn't always work on those low
it,
temperatures either. So,
no.
Right.
and that's like
Because salt,
in my neck of the woods when we get a snowstorm like that, it's they're continuously out for 24 hours doing the main roads, the state highways, the federal highways, stuff like that. And then once it clears up, because usually at that point schools are closed, and then once they get those down to where they need to be kept up, then they'll do the side streets and whatnot. But usually when there's no school, my side streets don't get touched until the next day. But yeah, I mean it's completely different scenario, completely
right?
different parts of the country. So where it may be an act of God in your area, in us, it's just another winter day.
Right.
So then
And
the second
as
part of this.
someone in
Okay, I'll let you finish. Sorry, Josh.
or say, as someone in the audience who pointed out, our district manager has already stated he is not authorizing admit leave.
Yeah,
You either
it's
show work
yeah.
or you don't get paid.
Or you're gonna use some of your leave.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, in those scenarios, it depends upon like a case by case area. You, if and I'm going to use this as an example. There has been a time because in my state it could snow varying levels in a couple miles apart. It can be sporadic. It can be random. There was one time because my city has two stations. It has a main office and a station. And there was one time we all went to work to deliver at my station, and my postmaster would not let us deliver because the trees were breaking, and it was like she didn't want any of the city carriers or the high mileage routes out there, but the main office still delivered. And the difference in snow was like a foot. So it can vary even on that degree. So that's why if there's a scenario where there's issue with because what I read in that Elm is a postmaster has the ability to pay that administrative leave, and they can go out on a limb and do that. But if there's ever an issue with it, then it can become a grievable issue. And you can take pictures, you can um, save text messages from managers, you can get the news reports, you can get the National Weather Service alerts. There's a lot of things that you can use to justify you guys having an act of God scenario that could help your steward in the grievance process with it. It just depends upon your area and that scenario. We've had it a couple times where I think only like 3 of us showed up and everybody else like didn't. And so sometimes like management will weigh out that. And I don't necessarily know if I agree with that completely. It just depends on the severity of the storm or whatever is going on. But and everybody else that didn't show up did get act of God pay. So and the people who did show up didn't go deliver. They sent them home. And so there's different levels of things that can happen there. Now, the other part of what I was reading is, let's say that there is an act of God, somewhat of an act of God scenario, and carriers show up to work. If you show up to work and there's, like, let's say there's issues with mail coming from the plant to your office, none of the clerks were there. Management just wants you to case and go home, and or there's different leveling degrees of things that could happen. If you show up to work, you're still clocking in on the scanner for the RX scan, and you're still signing that trip sheet. So management has to pay you for showing up. And let's say that let's say management says, "Hey, all we have is DPS and a couple parcels. Go out and deliver what you can." And you go out and you're the one who makes that determination. If there's roads that aren't passable, then you don't go there. I mean, what's going to be safest for you out there on the route. And you're the one who has to ultimately make that call. I have a road on my route personally that if it snows a couple, like 5 or more inches, I cannot get through on it. And there's one of the guys, he will actually plow it now pretty regularly because he's had to push me out a few times. But you're the one who knows your route. If you're a sub and you look at something and it doesn't look like it's safe, you're the one who needs to make that call. And then, scan things, either weather delay or no access, determining on what your management has instructed you guys for. But yeah, if management, let's say you have no mail and they just want you to go drive your route to check for outgoing mail. We've had that happen before. And there was parts of my route I, again, couldn't get to. And I came back and I said, "Hey, I couldn't drive down this road. I have a Metris. I don't have chains. And it wasn't safe for me to go down that road." It's up to you to make that call. But the biggest thing, I guess that as a sub that I had to learn was just be ready for it, because I guess we are mail carriers. But if it's not safe to proceed, you're the one who has to be the one to make that call.
Yep, and then that's true because I've had a couple scenarios. At my old office, we got 18 inches of snow overnight one night. And I shoveled my car out and I drove around the corner to the office and cased up my mail, loaded up my car, got 7 boxes delivered that day. Because after that, not a single road was touched, and I called him and said, "Not doing it, coming back." I was the first one out of the office, the first one back. A few others went basically out and went around the corner and came back in. We had one that the carrier couldn't even get into the office. I still ended up putting a full day in because the few of us subs that were still around, we hopped over to that other route to case up the mail and scan the packages and everything. So, so if they don't send you home and, mail has came in or there's mail there, packages, you're still, especially as a sub, you could still put some time in by casing up the routes. That way they're ready to go by the time, the next time come in. I've had an instance to where we had an ice storm in my office several years ago. I went out on the route. Roads weren't snow covered, but it was raining ice. And when you're driving barely 5 miles an hour, so hopefully you can stop at a box if you still don't slide past it. Mirrors are iced up, windshield wipers are iced up. And at that point, and then we were on the routes the furthest from the office. And, we were like, call back to the office. And of course we got crap back from the postmaster. So, of course I called my ADR at the time and they're like, "No, safety's your call." So I was at the RMPO office trying to scan all the packages because there was no way in heck I was going to risk my life out on a sheet of ice. And it took me quite a bit to get home. I had another instance, out on the other route, that the big long one that does get more snow than what we get in town here. And I was pushing snow with my bumper and I told her, I said, "I can't do this anymore. I've already been stuck. I'm coming back." Of course, I got resistance, but I said, "I don't care." And what normally would have took I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to get from the point where I turned around to a different point on the route. It took me over 45 minutes to get there. And I still had another 8 miles to drive back to the office. So, yeah, I mean, it really is your call for safety. And if it's not going to be safe for you and you're not comfortable with it, it's your call.
Yeah, and I guess I mean it. Like I was saying, like I'm not saying make it rain admin days. And I know there's some people out there who think, that there should be a giant step four grievance filed for the whole country, but it's very specific to the area that you're in and the situation. But if the managers aren't making, the managers also have an obligation to make sure that we are safe. And, we have some gold, like I'll call them the golden managers. I mean, me and my old postmaster, we would go at it, but she's called it a couple times and was like, I am not sending them out there. Like, there's one of our routes goes 85 miles, and we have a lot of hail damage that'll happen here at random, and we've had tornado warnings. And there was one time like my scanner was beeping and going off, and I was like, oh my god. So there's different things that could occur. But I think that in this scenario, I think that there's been a lot of scenario. I'm not saying make it rain admin days, but I think that I think the postal service, I guess, gets really defensive over it. But ultimately, like, when you show up on some of those days that are like borderline, they're looking at you like, why are you here? Sometimes, and like, well, because you got to get this stuff. And we took the oath to make sure things get delivered. And, I understand like the severity, like it's important for us to get the items to the customers. But if it's risking our safety, to even get to the office, if it's, I mean, and even some of the managers too, I've even a couple times where I knew it was going to snow pretty severely, I shoveled my driveway like a little, like at night off and on, so that I was going to be able to get my car out. And I backed it in a couple times so that I was able to just like gun it and get out instead of me backing out. So there's things like that I've done. And I've even like taken pictures of those and being like, look, like I'm stuck here on down the street from my house trying to get to work and I can't. And that's where it comes into, the managers and your postmasters should know the area and determine, like, hey, this is an act of God. But there is also a couple, if you go onto the Steward Reference Guide on the NRLCA website, there is also, like, this is from, what is this? This is administrative leave due to acts of God, and it has like references to the articles in it. And I did not read this. So the PO 603 section 142.11 in part, when acts of God prevent you from performing your duties, the postmaster may authorize administrative leave. You'll receive EMA for each service day that you report to the post office and are scheduled to perform delivery. And then section 141.12, exceptions. If the route is one in which the USPS owned or leased vehicle is regularly assigned or used on a test or emergency basis, you will not receive EMA for the days that the USPS vehicle is used. And then, if you, section 142.122, if you fail to serve any part of your route due to a lack of proper endeavor, proper equipment, or other failure for which you are responsible, deductions may be made from your salary for EMA. For partial failure, deductions are made at the rate of pay per mile for services on routes of 30 miles or less. For failure to perform services on your route over 30 miles, deductions are made at the rate of pay for such additional mileage. Excuse me. And then PO 603, section 152.1, you work schedule. You must report to the post office as scheduled without regard to weather conditions and must make every effort to perform full service. So again, it's just reiterating like you're making the attempts, and if it's something like let's say they called in the National Guard and they have the National Guard shutting down roads because it's so bad, there's scenarios like that. So what is the meaning of the Elm provision as it pertains to community disasters? And what is the length of the storm, the wind strength and temperature? Do these conditions create disaster conditions? Usually in the situation of a hurricane, tornado, or snowstorm, etc., it does not create the same conditions in all areas. There are phase-ins and phase-outs in most natural disasters. Whatever the cause, it usually must create a community disaster. Further, it must be general in nature and not of personal nature in scope and impact. Additionally, it must prevent groups of employees from working or reporting to work. Was the entire area shut down except for police and hospitals? Have the police warned everyone to stay off the roads and at home? So again, like that's like what I was saying, like if it's the governor declares state of emergencies and they have the National Guard or police blocking roads because they don't want anybody traveling. Newspaper articles, affidavits, or statements from medical authority of the storm will assist the case file. So if you end up having to file a grievance against not being paid act of God administrative pay, that would be things that you need to include to help your steward. If people were stranded in their vehicles or slept in their cars due to impassable roads, to what extent was this common knowledge in the area? Such language as poor weather, difficult conditions, or bad conditions are at most times insufficient in constituting a disaster. When the focus shifts to the scope of the storm being general in nature, questions similar to the following are asked. How many employees in this facility were unable to report to work due to the disaster? And what was the pattern of other industries nearby? And I'm gonna read this after, but the schools being shut down, businesses being shut down. If the Waffle House is the Waffle House shut down, things like that could play into a factor here. But how many employees in this facility were unable to report to work due to the disaster, and what was the pattern of other industries nearby? A better case can be built for administrative leave when employees from a large general area and numerous work sites are unable to report to work rather than a large number of employees from one specific work location. If information can be gathered and indicated on a map, the locations of large numbers being unable to report in various work sites will assist a case of this type. If a carrier lives a substantial different distance from the main road and is unable to report to work, but other employees from a general area are able to report to work, arbitrators tend to view this as personal in nature rather than general in nature. The employer is not responsible for where you live as to the relevancy of reaching a main highway in order to report to work. Arbitrators tend to not require the post office to be closed in order to deny acts of God leave. How do arbitrators look at groups of employees? Arbitrators tend to differ on what constitutes group. The ELM does not set forth any number for which administrative leave will be granted. If a group of postal employees live in the same general area and most of them were unable to report to work, the arbitrator would most likely be sensitive when compared to having a few employees live in a different area that may be equally impacted in their ability to arrive to work. How can arbitrator determine reasonable diligence when there are so many variables involved? So, and I'll read that in a second. That's kind of why I was like, I wanted to do the generalized scope of it. Like it seriously depends upon the area that you're in. So first, management must weigh the amount of reasonable diligence that an employee or employees exercise in any given location. Testimony and affidavits on behalf of an individual's reasonable diligence must be submitted in the grievance file in order to have a case for sustaining administrative leave. Employees must furnish proof of such an effort on their own behalf in order to assist their case. If two employees lived in the same general area and one had a four-wheel drive vehicle and the other did not, it would be incumbent upon the individual without the four-wheel drive vehicle to show that he had no other alternative means for arriving at work. In summary, most arbitrators are reluctant to second-guess management's discretion in granting administrative leave for severe storms or natural disasters. The language states the employer may authorize, it does not state shall authorize administrative leave. If carriers feel that they are unfairly denied administrative leave under these conditions, the union must usually be able to show that all the criteria listed in section 519.211 existed and that the carrier did not indeed exercise reasonable diligence in trying to report to work, and that management was arbitrary and capricious in denying administrative leave. So hence why I had the scenario where I figured it was going to end up becoming an act of God scenario. And so that's why I plowed and tried to, I made the attempt. And I took pictures of my vehicle stuck down the street, and there's other people that live closer to the office that also couldn't even get to work because I only live 10 minutes from my office. But I have another person that I know that works at my office that lives in the mountains, and usually it snows a lot more over there, and so what she'll do sometimes is she'll stay in town if it's that. She'll try and find somebody to stay in town with because she knows that she won't be able to make it. And I'm not saying that everybody has that ability either. You just need to try and make a reasonable effort to get to work. And if there is an act of God that does not let you, then you should be asking for that administrative leave. Does that kind of summarize it? Trying to think, did I miss anything with it?
No, I think that
Did I
pretty
lose
much
everybody?
covered it. I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. There's also some step 4 grievance settlements on there. I think they're more specific to scenarios. I'm trying to think if I knew that document they're kind of said a lot of it. This one is this is a denied grievance from 1975. Notwithstanding our position of untimeliness, there is no justification for granting administrative leave for March 28, 1975. Only 7 of the approximately 90 employees scheduled for duty failed to report. Additionally, the national agreement does not require management to authorize administrative leave, which it says they may, which I don't like. I wish it just said that they did. But in this one, it got denied because only 7 of the 90 employees didn't make it. This one, more recent.
Hello?
Hello? The parties agree if a rural carrier reports to work on their relief day, but is not able to this is if you were called in and then they need to pay you if you came in on your relief day. The parties agree if a rural carrier reports to work on their relief day but is not able to complete their normal duties due to an act of God, a full day's compensation is provided to include equipment maintenance allowance if applicable. For example, if a decision is made to curtail mail delivery after the regular rural carrier cases for 2 hours, DACA 3 or 5 is recorded on PS Form 1314 as appropriate, and compensation is provided for a full day. So, again, you showed up, it was your relief day, they still got to pay you that DACA 3 or 5. And that one's from 2019. That was actually a pretty good one. This one is 1996. The issue in this grievance is whether the grievant was properly denied act of God administrative leave. 519.211 of the Employee Labor Relations defines act of God as a disaster situation that must be general rather than personal in scope and impact. It must prevent groups of employees from working or reporting to work. In the instant case, only 2 employees were unable to report for duty, which over 100 employees reported as scheduled. Clearly, the facts in the instant case does not meet the ELM criteria for act of God administrative leave, and that one is from 1996. This one is from 1981, and the Postal Service takes a very strict and narrow view of such act of God in that they must be general rather than personal in scope and impact. On the days in question, only 3 out of 32 employees failed to report on June 16th, and 6 out of 32 failed to report on June 17th. Maps included in the file show that the employees not reporting were not grouped together, but in fact lived among those who did report. So in this scenario, accordingly, we find no violation of the national agreement. This grievance is denied. So, let's say that that you live near a couple other people and none of you made it in. There's fact circumstances in there too. If the clerks aren't showing up either, the city carriers, the managers, and the rural carriers, it's in those scenarios. Yeah, it's probably going to be more of an act of God. You just have to weigh all of the things in those instances. Ramble. I should drink some water. Sorry, some of those grievance settlements weren't great, but they still
happens.
lay it out. They still lay it out though, because tomorrow in Josh's scenario, are you gonna be able to make it to work tomorrow, Josh?
I probably will. It's going to take me longer, but I probably will be able to make it. I'm more worried about getting there in the morning tomorrow than getting home.
Yeah, but let's say
Saturday,
that
I was more
snowed, and let's say it snowed another foot.
Then I probably would not be able to make it.
Yeah.
Like if it started snowing again tonight, and I woke up to another foot, I probably would not be able to make it. Yeah.
And I doubt your supervisors and everybody else could. For another foot of snow? I think I've had it here where we've had 2 for sure. And one of those 2 I had to grieve. But most of us in the office couldn't make it. It was more than half. And so we were successful in it. But there's also been times, like I said, where I've gone in and my postmaster called it and said, we're not going out to deliver. Or I've gone out and I got to the beginning of my route, and it wasn't necessarily an act of God scenario, but I got out to my route and the snow, it wasn't snowing, but it had snowed the day before and it was windy and all the snow was drifting onto the road and the plows couldn't keep up. And I was like, I can't even see out here. And I got to one point and I just turned back and went back to the office. And I was like, I'm not delivering. There's no way. I can't even see the road. I can't even see the mailboxes. How am I supposed to deliver out here? But there's been other times too where I felt like I was safe to go out and deliver and cased and went out, and then my manager called it and I was at the gas station filling up to go deliver, and we all came back. So there's different levels, I guess, to it, and figuring it out. In Florida, for instance, I know that there's been a lot of hurricanes, and I would assume, I'm not in Florida, but I know that there's been post offices that were taken out, isn't there, in those areas surrounding the coast, or even in Los Angeles, where the fires were burning surrounding a post office. We've had it here even where there was a fire up in the mountains, and the fire burned right up to the perimeter of the post office, right pretty close to it, but it's like a P.O. box. It's not a delivery one. But I remember thinking, I was like, well, at least those clerks and the postmaster that work there they had all the roads shut down to access it. There's nobody that could get to the building. other than emergency personnel. Like you could see the fire from it was right there, out the window. So in those but it just depends. Or, let's say maybe it's a tornado took the post office out, or there's things like that, or the flooding, and the flood could take the post office out, and they're trying to get people to shelter. There's different things like that. But I think that's it, though. I could ramble and ramble, You know how I get. I just want people to stay safe. That's ultimately I personally don't like delivering mail in the snow. That's probably my least favorite part of working for the post office is delivering mail in the snow, or when it's like below 10 degrees. That's like the absolute worst. And I know that there was people out there delivering in the negatives, which I don't necessarily agree with either. But I've had it at one time where I delivered, it was -5, and I shut the back door to the LOV because the LOV doesn't stay very insulated, obviously. And so I shut that back door, and then I used all of my empty trays to try and insulate myself. But I was crying too. I was so mad, and my tears were freezing. It was so bad. I just but yeah, I don't know. I just had to get in that mental mindset of well, you're a mail carrier and you live somewhere where it snows. And I do what I can, but if it's not safe, then it's not safe, and I'm not going to do it. I need to make sure that I get home to my family and to my kid. There's been times too where he's even been you work?
We locate to where we get chemo winter 90% of the time.
Yeah, but then there's but then it's the humidity. You go to Arizona, but then it's 100 degrees. So the give and take.
I have a friend in Florida, and they posted their weather report this morning. It was 26 degrees where he's at.
It was in the 20s when I got home, and it felt warm to me.
Well, I'm sure it did
That
not
is
feel warm to him.
All right, guys, do you got anything else, or we can wrap it up?
I think we can wrap it.
I think we can wrap it. I was looking to see if there was questions in the chat at all.
No, there haven't been. Not really been covering it.
I think I covered a lot of it. Yeah. Oh, so if management, so let's say that management does want you to case, the trucks are late, they are going to send you guys out. You treat it like you would any day, and you keep working like you would. And then if the trucks are still late, then you would get paid 81.27 time to wait. It's management needs to be the one to sit, you need to make that call. Are you sending us now, calling final and having us go out? Or are you going to call final, send us with what we got? Typically they should do that, and not have you do a second trip later on if it's parcels. But if it's mail and there's things along those lines, then it would be 81.27 time for that part of that too. So, but the big thing, yeah, if you're there and management doesn't know if you guys are going out, just please make sure, just sign your trip sheet when you first get there. They got to pay you like they would any other day. And, there's been times where the managers weren't sure if we were going to go out or not. And I just cased everything. I think I ended up working on my edit book. I did various things, and then they were like, we're not sending you guys out. There's even been a time where we had the power. The snow was so heavy that the power lines couldn't hold the snow, and the power was out in my post office. So they brought out spotlights, and we had it was so stupid. And then they're like, well, we're not, you guys aren't delivering either, So it just depends. But I think the height of the weather, we get nervous, and we almost, I guess, overthink it. And it's you just have to think about it like any other day. oh, okay, if I'm waiting on a truck, then it needs to be green card time or 8127 time because I have everything else ready. And like, look, management, like, make that call of what we're going to do. If you want me to run out with only my DPS and a couple parcels, then we're going to attempt it and figure out what we're going to do. So, but act of God. So,
Ah, thank you guys. Your final words this evening, Josh.
Be safe, hydrate, layer up. It's going to take you longer out there, especially in some of these areas, especially with the weather conditions, and especially with 12 days of not being able to deliver, depending on where you're at and what the case is. Don't get overwhelmed. If you do, take a step back, take a deep breath, and step back in. Have a good week, and catch you next time.
Yeah.
well, thank you guys. I hope that I know he like kind of cut out. I heard him. It's all good.
Hello?
It's all good. Yep, I hear you. You're good. um, thank you guys. I hope that this helped you guys. I know some of it you may not necessarily agree with, but that's just I'm just presenting what I've seen and the different scenarios. I live in a state that it snows a lot, so it has not snowed that much this year, knock on wood, but we'll
You can
take that
come get it.
with what it is. But yeah,
Come get
usually
your weather
March
and
is
keep it.
when it gets pretty. Yeah, and March is when most of the act of God scenarios have occurred here in my state. So, but make sure that you guys are still staying hydrated. I know, I'm pretty guilty of it too. This is a weird disclaimer that I wanted to put out there too. If it, I just in general, because I've had apparently I had something today where some spammer took my name and like texted people asking for money. Just be mindful if you have some random spam number texting you asking you for money and emails, and just vet who's asking you these things. It's not just sending random spammers out there on the internet or text message or phone call. Be just mindful of who you're giving that information to, and check with your normal source, if it's actually them or not, if that makes sense. Yeah. Sorry, I'm tired also. If you guys need any help with anything, yeah, I'm like, yeah. So you're not believing randos on asking you for money. But if you need help, also the EAP phone number, it again, it is, what is EAP for? I should have it memorized now. What is it? It's 1-800
EAP
three. What
for
is it? 3274 EAP 1-800 EAP. The number 4YOU, and the phone number is 800-327-4968. So if you need help, anybody in your household needs help. Maybe you were stuck inside in the snowstorm and you guys are all driving each other crazy and need to talk to somebody else. Call EAP. They're there for you for that reason. So, but yeah, Kristen.
Thanks, guys. I needed this normalcy. For those of you that are not on my Facebook or in the Discord, my father passed away last Sunday unexpectedly, following a stroke that happened the previous Sunday. So 2 weeks ago today, when the stroke happened, and unfortunately, I did get to see Dad on Saturday evening, just shy of 24 hours before he passed. But I was, so going forward, I am going to be traveling a lot between my house and my mom's. Because on top of that, my mom was diagnosed with dementia a little over a month ago. So yeah, this is like when I said it was a whirlwind week. It was. My after I got through the training stuff I was doing, my daughter and my grandson and I went down to my mom's on Saturday evening. We got to go visit Dad in the hospital, and then unfortunately we lost him Sunday evening. So I haven't had my breakdown yet because I've been the one keeping the strong head and making the hard phone calls and doing what needed to be done both for my mom and what needed to be done paperwork and all that other stuff wise, you know, just because I knew that my brother and my son were nowhere near in a headspace to try and handle any of that. So my headspace ain't the greatest right now either, and who knows? I may be calling EAP if I have to. But going forward, episodes may be sporadic just because mainly of my traveling. And yes, I am taking out FMLA, so I protect myself there. It was already planned before that, so just waiting on the paperwork to arrive. But I will be traveling a lot, primarily on Fridays, and this week possibly on Wednesday after work and Sundays. So I will be spending my weekends, the majority that I don't have other things scheduled for, at my mom. While we're trying to get everything else taken care of and making sure that she's eating and doesn't want to. Just instilling that she can't drive anymore. She doesn't understand that, but we're trying. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. So, episodes may be sporadic. We may not do the live stage on Discord if we, hey guys, we got a topic and what night are you right? We're just going to get together and record it and put it out when we can. So, we'll see what happens on all that. I'm going to wish my son, because I don't think I'm going to see him before I get back down to mom's, safe travel out to Meow's neck of the woods to start the next chapter in his life. So, yeah, it's the timing is not great on that, but, he still needs to see if that job's going to be a fit for him. So, and then hopefully get his wife and son over here eventually. We're doing what we can, and I'm getting by. Like I said, tomorrow's gonna be my first day back on the route in 2 weeks, and we're gonna see how that goes. It's not gonna be an easy one for me, but I'll be out there pushing through the snow. I was looking at the temps; it's going to be in the 20s, which actually is gonna feel like warmth for a change. But I'll remember to take a couple extra bottles of water with me. Lord knows I'm gonna have to replenish the tears that'll be flowing from my face all day long. But that's just, the circle of life, and now we gotta do what we gotta do to make sure my mom's taken care of. But on that note, that's why I didn't want to lead off with that, guys. I just, wanted to put it out there what was going on. And, we initially said we weren't going to record last week, then we thought we would, and then I said, no, I don't think I can, which was probably a good thing, because that was the time frame. So, but we definitely, I needed a bit back to normalcy this evening. So I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's record. So, on that note, guys, like I said, it may be sporadic. So if you don't see something next Monday, then, look maybe in the middle of the week. Just depends on my traveling and when I get home. So, but everybody take care. Definitely be safe out there. This weather is just crazy in areas it isn't used to having this crazy weather in. So, definitely be safe, and you get to make that safety call yourself. We'll talk with you guys next time.